What's up, my squids? Today we're talking about the knees. We're talking about knee health. I get this question all the time. Hey, how are you 30 years old jumping off a trampoline over 10 feet, landing and jumping again without getting hurt? Adaptability. You have the most incredible gift that you could ever imagine, and that is your ability to adapt. Humans are incredible. 99% of you listening to this are throwing this gift away. You don't fully understand just how adaptable humans are. That's what we're talking about in today's podcast, and you're going to learn why that matters for injury reduction. Let's get this work.
You're listening to the PJF Podcast, a show dedicated to decoding elite sports performance and fitness. I'm Paul Fabritz, and I'm an MBA strength and conditioning and performance trainer. If you want to become superhuman, take your fitness, and take your sports performance to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's do it.
What's up, my squids? Today, I want to give some practical advice about the knees. Okay, not just the knees. This goes for any joint, ankles, hips, back, whatever. But for basketball players, the conversation usually revolves around the knees. That's typically our limiting factor because our knees take a beating in the sport. So I get a lot of questions from young hoopers, from pro hoopers, from just about anybody, even retired hoopers. How much is too much? How much jumping can I do? You know, what is the right amount of ground contacts in plyometrics? How much squatting can I, how much? What is the right amount? How do I get enough so that I'm protected in sport, but not too much so that I don't get hurt in training? Here's the thing that you guys got to understand. There is no such thing. There is no certain amount of perfect ground contacts. There is no right amount of squatting, okay? The answer is humans are highly adaptable. Pretty much whatever stress we throw at our bodies, we can adapt to, as long as it is very gradual and progressive. So the answer is this: it's not about how much is right. It's about how do we get to that point. So if we took two athletes and we looked at their training volume, and let's say they're doing plyometrics 3 days a week. Maybe they're doing strength training in the second half of the session, plyometrics in the first half of the session. They're doing it 3 days a week. You might look at their total ground contacts and say, that's a lot. That's a lot of plyometrics. But the truth is, it's not just about the total amount that they're doing. It is about how they got there. So if athlete 1 achieved that workout volume in a matter of 3 weeks, so they were on the couch or they were doing no training, and now they're at the point where within 3 weeks, they ramped up to the point where they're doing 3 sessions a week of plyometrics, and their plyometric volume maybe is high. But the other athlete ramped up to that over a 2-year period. So let's say this kid started his plyometric program 2 years ago, but he started at 1 day per week. And all he did was one exercise. He did 3 sets of one exercise. Let's say he did 5 reps. And then the next month, he ramped that up to 2 sessions per week. So now he's Monday and Wednesday, but he's still only doing one exercise. And then maybe the next month, he added another exercise. So he kept his frequency the same. He's still doing it Monday, Wednesday, but he added a second exercise. Now he's doing another 3 sets. And then maybe the next month, he adds another set. So he keeps the frequency the same, the intensity the same. He increases the volume by adding another set. And then maybe the next month, he went up to 3 days per week, but he kept everything else the same. So the volume, the intensity stayed the same, but the frequency increased. And every month he tweaks one thing to gradually, progressively overload. This player is building his tendons. He's building his joints, his muscles. Everything is being built very gradually and progressively. The body wants to adapt. The body is a master adapter, but it can only adapt to so much at one time. So the way that all of us do it is we just throw it all in. We go from I'm doing this, I'm on the couch, to all of a sudden I'm exercising. And that ramp up was too fast, and our body cannot adapt. And when you cannot adapt, when the stimulus is too strong or the stimulus was applied too soon, we don't adapt, we break down. So that's when you get the shin splints and the patellar tendinopathy and the Achilles tendonitis and the plantar fasciitis and the low back pain, because we ramped it up too fast. But the kid that did it the right way is gradually progressing. And what we now know is it's not just muscles and tendons and ligaments and bone that adapt, because these have been studied for decades. We now know that cartilage actually adapts. So what trainers used to think is with exercise, we're going to wear down the cartilage. Actually not true. When exercise like plyometrics or sprinting or weightlifting is applied at the right rate, our cartilage actually adapts along with it. So from every level of the human body, we're not breaking down with exercise, we're getting healthier with exercise, as long as it was progressed the right way. So now stepping back and looking at it in the big picture, we have to think about confronting our problems. How many times have you heard this? Don't run from your problems, confront your problems. You got to step up and face them head on. You're afraid of the dark? Okay, well, you got to get used to being in the dark. You're afraid of being in water? Okay, we got to get you in the water so that you can confront the problem. You can't just hide forever. But when it comes to training, people think that we avoid the problem, right? Hip internal rotation on the court. The inside edge of the foot comes to the floor. We're in a position that biomechanically in a lab is not ideal, but we know that it's absolutely necessary to even be decent at basketball. And sometimes you're going to see this 4 or 5 times in one play. Confront the problem. Don't run from the problem. You see a lot of these trainers go, oh, that's a bad movement. We don't want to do that. So then in practice, they teach the player not to do that. And then the player in the heat of battle, in competition, they're going to do what actually works to make them successful at the sport, right? And to be successful at the sport, you have to do that. And so now you're going into battle completely unprepared because your coach didn't let you do that in practice. You didn't gradually, slowly build up tolerance. And then you didn't build the mobility for that. And then you didn't build the stability and strength in those positions. Now you're in the court unprotected, right? That's an example of stress shielding or running from your problems. You're not confronting the problem. High forces, landing with 7 or 8 times your body weight every time that you land from a maximal jump. That's a problem. That's a lot of stress on your joints. Don't run from that, because we have to do that. On the court, we have to do that over and over and over again. In one weekend of an AAU tournament, we might be taking millions of pounds of force to the knees. So in training, should we go, force is bad. We don't want to jump. We don't want to land. We don't want to squat. We don't want to do anything that's going to add stress. No, we want to build tolerance. Confront the problem head on and start very light. So you say, okay, what's the problem, right? Where do injuries happen? Injuries are happening on loading. When I'm landing with 7 times my body weight, that's a high risk scenario. That's where the injuries are happening. So you identify, you go, that's a problem. Okay, in training, we may not want to attack that head on right away. We may not want to say, okay, all I'm going to do is high volume jumps where I'm going maximally and landing from that. Maybe I go, okay, I'm going to go to a box, because when we jump to a box, we're not landing from as high of a height as we would jumping and landing on the floor. We have less time for gravity to act on our bodies. And so landing on a box is way less stress, right? So maybe we start there, and then you jump and you land on the floor for another phase, maybe another month. You jump and you land on the floor. We're starting to build it up. And then maybe you go from a 1-step, because now we're jumping higher and we're landing from a higher drop height. And then a 2-step, and then a 3-step, and then a full approach. And then eventually we're dropping off boxes and landing and springing off the floor fast. And then eventually maybe we increase that box height even a little bit more. And it's this very gradual problem where we're introducing more and more and more stress to our body. But as long as it's introduced at the right rate, we build durability in that movement. So it's a lot like a vaccine. The way to prevent injuries in that movement is to do that movement, right? There is no other thing that is going to prevent injuries in landing other than gradually exposing ourselves to those landing forces. I've sort of become a walking example for this. When I was going through my injuries where I had all these bone issues, I had a broken hand, I had 2 broken wrists, I had My ankle injury, I had 2 broken toes. I was just breaking bone after bone after bone. That's because in training, I was running from the smoke. I didn't want the smoke, right? I didn't want to expose myself because at that time, what I was being told is, you want to take it light. You want to take it easy on your body. You don't want to wear down your body. And so I was hiding from the stress, right? I was afraid to lift heavy. I was afraid to do intense plyometrics. And then I was underprepared for the sport, and I went out and I got hurt in the sport. Once I learned how to actually train for injury reduction, I realized, okay, we want the smoke. All right. I want to confront my problems head on. And I built durability. And now I'm 30 years old. And the other day I jumped off a trampoline. I was probably 10 feet high, and I landed on the floor and immediately went into a depth jump and jumped 30 inches. I mean, the amount of knee strength and ankle strength to do that is very, very high. I mean, most people in that situation would have just shattered their ankles or shattered their knees. And I was able to do that and repeat it again and walk off with no knee pain. And the next day come back in and train hard without any knee pain. And so that's a perfect example of like, my joints should have been healthier in my teens and in my early 20s, but because I wasn't progressively overloading and gradually stressing my joints to the right amount, I was fragile. And then basketball itself broke me down. Now that I train the right way, I'm 30 years old. I have a full-time job. I'm on my feet all the time. On paper, I should not be able to go out and handle that jump off the trampoline or handle the hours and hours of filming and demos that I do now, but I still do it and my joints feel better than ever. So that's just an example of what you can actually do. Your body will adapt. Most humans never fully realize the gift that we were given. I mean, the human body is so complex and so amazing, but the ability to adapt, that's what makes us human, and that's what makes us able to survive year after year after year, right? Is our ability to adapt. And every time you step in the weight room, every time you step on the field, you have to keep this in mind. We don't want to throw away this incredible gift that we were given of our ability to adapt to just about any stress that we place on our body, as long as we're very, very calculated and we program and we progress that stress the right way, our body will adapt. Go use this incredibly rare gift of adaptation. Let's build.